welcome to Ghosts of Dufferin County and Beyond. I'm Marianne Kennedy, your host, and today we are doing part 2 of question and answer from questions submitted by viewers. To help us do that, we're welcoming back to the studio Karen Shepley, Julie Baumlisberger, and Don Rockall. So if you're tuning in to the show for the first time and you missed part 1, we want to share a little bit about each of our guests with you. So Karen Shepley is a yoga master and animal communicator. Karen, tell us a little bit about your practice.
Yeah, so as a yoga master, I've been doing teaching yoga for, over 25 years. And so, started into yoga before it was even popular.
Yeah.
Started teaching and, became a master and so on. And I just love it. And then more recently have been adding some more spiritual disciplines to what I do. And one of those is being an animal communicator.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What else have you recently added?
Oh, well, getting back to the yoga, I'm actually starting to teach crystal yoga classes. So adding the crystal element, the vibrational element into my yoga classes. So that's been really fun as well.
That sounds amazing. Wonderful. Thank you. Julie, tell us a little bit about you. I know you're a Reiki master and you're an essential oils educator.
Yes. So I have a healing practice where I have clients coming to me for support. I offer Reiki, aromatherapy, massages, and treatments, but also I am an educator. So I love teaching Reiki. I offer Reiki shares to people, to my students and to other people. And I do a lot of online workshops, in-person workshops, and just educating people about safe and effective use of essential oils.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Don Rockall, manual therapist and healer. Tell us about you.
I have a practice and I incorporate a lot of tools in my toolbox: massage therapy, acupuncture, craniosacral therapy, somato-emotional release. I'm also a Reiki master, so I use all of those collectively to treat the person that's on my table needing help.
That's amazing. Thank you all for sharing that. So let's get right to it. Julie, we're going to start with you.
Okay.
So I have heard a lot of people ask questions about essential oils. It's a bit of an emerging discipline or experience. Not that it's new, but it's new to a lot of people. And so one of the things that people often ask, and I've had this submitted to us for the show, is what are some oils that I can use to, 1, help me to fall asleep faster, 2, de-stress, and how to use those oils. How do we use them? How are they most effectively uptaken or influencing toward the body?
Right. So those two topics are something that I get asked every time I do anything with oils. People say, I need help sleeping or I'm stressed out. And those two things impact our immune system and our health in such profound ways. So it's really important to address them. So I'm really glad I can speak about that. Stress is a big one. And I love using and recommending, there's a beautiful blend called Adaptive. Any oil that comes from a tree is going to be naturally calming. Think about when you go into a forest, you're calm. So any oil that comes from a tree is naturally going to ground you, make you feel calmer. So for stress, those are brilliant. Anything that comes from a flower like rose or magnolia is also going to nurture you and help you feel protected. Those are great for stress as well. Sleep is a big topic. Different people need different oils. Personally, I go any of the stress oils would work really well. But also children, for example, do really well with wild orange. It's an uplifting, happy oil, and we call it happiness in a bottle. But it also, we call it the oil of abundance. So they don't feel that they're missing out on anything by going to bed. They're calmer and more likely to go to bed feeling tomorrow's another day I can do with it. So wild orange is a great one to use for kids. The beautiful thing about using essential oils is that we're our own alchemists. We can blend a lot of oils together. So I often tell people, let's see what's working. If one isn't working, we'll try something else. And then another thing to consider is why we're not falling asleep. If it's because we're physically uncomfortable, we need to address that physical condition. So if you have sore muscles somewhere, or you have head tension, or your neck is sore, let's get some oils on those topically and deal with that. Oils can be used 3 different ways: aromatically, topically, internally.
Okay.
And if it's something to address how you're feeling, aromatically, throw them in the diffuser, spritz your pillow.
Feeling like emotionally?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So anything to do with how you're feeling emotionally, smelling them is going to be the most beneficial way to use them. If you have any sores anywhere, like discomfort, muscle tension, whatever, you want to dilute them and apply them topically to wherever it's uncomfortable. So, your tummy's upset, put it there. And I love that for sleep, one of the best places to apply them is actually to your big toe. And that's the reflexology point for the brain. The nerve from your head goes all the way down to your toe. So if you're having trouble fall asleep, put a drop of lavender on your big toe, work it in, and
fascinating.
Yeah, it works really well.
What are some of the de-stress oils?
So copaiba is a great one. Lavender is a great one.
Okay.
Anything that supports your respiratory system. So there's a beautiful blend called Breathe or Easy Air. I love using that because it just encourages deeper breathing.
Okay.
Let's just get a handle on this.
So aromatically speaking, would someone diffuse an oil with one of those diffusers, or could they maybe inhale it directly from something on their skin or a bottle?
Aromatically, there are different ways of doing that. So a diffuser is a great way. In our bedroom, we have a diffuser that goes on and off all night. So when I wake up in the middle of the night, I can smell that oil on. As I mentioned, you can do a spray bottle, add some water to your essential oil in a mister, just spray your room with it. Aromatherapy jewelry is another great way of doing it.
Yes,
throughout the day, you can put a drop on the collar of your nightgown. I often will apply them to my pulse points. All of those are aromatic ways. Any way that you can get it to smell.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that,
You're
Julie.
welcome.
Dawn, we're moving on to you. So there are obvious physical benefits to someone having a manual therapy done, like a massage or something along those lines. But one of the questions that our viewers have is this: are there also mental, emotional, and spiritual benefits to massage or manual therapies?
And absolutely, there's mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical benefits. The list is endless. We could spend this entire episode going over.
Can you give us an example?
Yes, absolutely. So as a manual practitioner, we are manipulating the tissue. We are doing hands-on therapy. However, we're physiologically changing the body in a way of chemical changes. Okay. So if someone comes to us and they are highly stressed, then we will actually reduce their production of cortisone and adrenaline, as well as boost their production of dopamine and serotonin, which are the feel-good, happy neurotransmitters. And by doing that, we create balance in the body. And of course, when the body is balanced, it's more aligned. And when you're there in the presence of someone who's holding space, really seeing you and hearing you, you can't help but feel loved and connected. And of course, that's good for the soul.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I know that I definitely feel like that. I feel like my physical body is being taken care of, but mentally and emotionally, after a really wonderful massage treatment, I feel like $1,000,000. So something else beyond just a physical shift is happening there, and which is why it's so important as practitioners or as individuals with no spiritual practice to tend to that physical body, especially as I often find as women or as parents, we tend to sort of put our bodily needs a little sort of down on the hierarchy of things that are important or that we need to do, but I find that we really need to pay more attention to our body these days. Thanks for sharing that, Dawn. Karen, on to you. Now, this question might sound a little bit silly, but the question is this: what is the purpose of yoga, and what are some real benefits that people can experience from doing yoga?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So yoga is a great activity, and in all the years that I've been doing this, it hasn't changed for me. I feel that you can really address the body, the mind, and the spirit in yoga, where you can't do that in a lot of other activities. So, you're addressing the body element because you're strengthening muscles, you're stretching muscles, you're stimulating the mind because you're having to think about what you're doing. Okay. And then, of course, you're also addressing the spiritual component because when you're doing different poses, you're stimulating chakras, which are energy centers in the body.
Fascinating.
And then obviously, as some people know, or most people know that have done a yoga class, we always end with a meditation portion. So that addresses the spiritual component as well. So, we're all busy, and, you have a couple kids and a busy life and so many things to do. And so I find if you do an activity that addresses the body, the mind, and the spirit, you're kind of doing it all in one activity. So
that really makes sense.
Yeah, yoga is the way to go.
That's fantastic. What have you found, Karen, is sort of like a common situation that someone might be in that brings them to yoga? other than just sort of curiosity or experimentation?
Well, usually, when I used to teach yoga a long time ago, it tended to be more women, and they would come to address stress and emotional things in their life. Now I'm getting a lot more men. I think a lot of athletes, have come to yoga, and that is let men know that it's okay for them to go to yoga. If these professional athletes are doing yoga, then they can do yoga too. And often they come for the physical component.
Okay.
And they don't really realize they're doing addressing the mental component and the spiritual component as well. So I like to add that little spiritual component in a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
And people love that more than they realize that they will.
I have found that myself. I admittedly have been to maybe a few yoga classes in my life, but I have been to yoga classes with folks a couple of times who have no spiritual education or practice. And so they're really there for what they think is sort of like a physical experience. But at the end of the yoga class, when we is it called Shavasana?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
Shavasana.
Right. Yes.
And just kind of like melt into that ground and melt into the body. I've actually found that to be a really emotional experience for people who might not have been expecting an emotional experience within yoga itself. And so I found that to be really powerful, just observing that in other people. They had no idea that there would be another type or another level of experience beyond the physical. And I just find that to be really rewarding for folks. Folks might not be aware that you can experience just a sort of deeper level connection with the self, right? Okay, super. Thank you for that, Karen. So one of the questions submitted for me today is, can a medium make connections with their own family members that have passed whenever they feel the need to do so? And of course, the answer to that question is yes. As a medium, if I need guidance or direction, or I want to have a connection with someone who's close to me on the other side, yes, I can make an immediate and instantaneous connection with them. But here's the interesting thing. That isn't true just if you're a medium. If you're an ordinary person with no mediumistic or psychic abilities, you are always only a thought away from someone that you're connected to on the other side, which means that thinking about them, calling their name, recalling experiences with them, it's sort of like a doorbell going off on the other side that calls your loved one to you. So can I do that on demand, on command? I can with my own people on the other side, but so can you. And so if it's something that you want to experience, there's a great exercise that I encourage folks to do. Wake up in the morning when you don't have to get rushed and get ready quickly. Lay in bed a little bit longer and ask a loved one that you are quite connected with to show you a memory that you have long since forgotten. It's a really beautiful moment where the mind hasn't started processing the daily ins and outs of what needs to be done. We have a great space to receive information back. Give it a try and see how it goes for you. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, I have with me in the studio today Karen Shepley, who is a yoga master and animal communicator. I've got Julie Baumlisberger, who is a Reiki master and essential oils educator. And we have Don Rockall, who is a manual therapist and a healer. Today, we are talking about all things spiritual and wellness related, and we are answering questions submitted by you, our viewers. So let's move on. We're coming back to Julie. Julie, the question submitted is this: is it true that not all essential oils are made the same? And what should folks watch out for?
Yes. Unfortunately, that is the case. As you mentioned, essential oils are becoming a lot more popular. They've been around for thousands of years, maybe not in the same forms. They were created differently, but a lot of people are turning to them as natural solutions for things. And because of that, because they're something that is so old, there are a lot of things that can come up. So how oils are different, it depends on where they're grown. It depends on how they're grown, if there are pesticides or herbicides involved, if there's a lot of pollution around the area. So that can affect the quality of the oil.
Sure.
from that point on, it's what happens with the oils after they're distilled. So there are two ways that oils can be tampered with. One is called dilution. So they can take a pure oil and add extra carrier oil to it. So you're not getting the full strength essential oil that you were expecting. So you won't have the same results. And another way that's a little bit more, I'm not going to say dangerous, but certainly worse, is adulteration, where they will take other oils other than what you see on the label and adding them to that. And that's mainly as a cost-cutting thing to make more money.
Because some oils are more expensive than others?
Exactly.
Okay.
So there's, as an example, Melissa is a beautiful precious oil. Lemongrass is a much less expensive oil. It smells very similar. So it's been shown that sometimes lemongrass is added to the Melissa to make you think you're getting Melissa, but you're getting a lot of lemongrass and just a little bit of Melissa. So that's one thing. And all of these reasons, how they're grown, the integrity with which they're grown, and also the testing. I use oils exclusively from doTERRA, and which is the largest essential oil company in the world right now. And one of the reasons is I feel safe using these oils for my family and my clients and my customers, because they are pure. They're tested. Each oil is tested 54 times.
Wow.
And that's for every single batch. And I can find the tests for those oils online. There's a third-party testing that's done, and I can research all my oils. So I know that they're pure, they're safe to use. So yeah, definitely. If you're purchasing your oils at a boutique shop or Walmart or Winners, you may not be getting the quality that you're expecting.
Okay, that's good to know, because of course, if you mentioned 3 ways that we can use essential oils,
yes,
right? And 2 of those ways, one was dermally, so we can apply it to the skin, and the other is internally.
Right.
And so yeah, I think we want to be really careful with what we're putting on our skin, and certainly what we're ingesting in our body, right?
Yeah. I actually read of an account where somebody used lavender oil on a young child, and lavender oil is one of the most gentle oils out there. In fact, you can use it undiluted, and it was used on a child, and they had a skin reaction to it. That should never happen with pure lavender oil. So, even a lot of people will purchase online, Amazon. doTERRA oils have been duplicated on Amazon even. People are buying the bottles, opening them up, diluting them, and reselling them. So buy from somebody that you know, go to a health food store and talk to professionals who can guide you how to use the oils properly.
That is great advice.
It's really important to make sure you're getting your oils from a source that you trust.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that, Julie. Dawn, we're moving on to you. This is about a certain type of manual therapy that some folks know about and are huge proponents of, and other folks have never heard of this. But it's a really important question, because I think that as a modality, as a service and offering, it's potentially really powerful for people in terms of working through some material that might be held within their body. So the question is, can you tell us about somato-emotional release?
Somato-emotional release is actually one of my favorite techniques to use in practice. It's a lovely technique that allows the body and the mind to release stored up energy, emotions, and memories. Actually, first of all, somato is a Greek word for body and tissue.
Yep.
And when we come in contact with some kind of trauma, whether it be mental, emotional, physically, after the event takes place, we are supposed to release that energy and then move on. We see it in nature all the time. We see like the little bunny quivering and shaking after it's outrun its pet predator, or on a pond you'll see 2 ducks after a confrontation. They'll separate and then they'll flap their wings to release and let go of everything that just happened.
Fascinating.
Humans are supposed to do the same thing, but sometimes we either don't or we don't get rid of everything. And what the body does is, so then that emotion or the energy is actually stored in the tissue, and the body is brilliant. It will collect that and narrow it down into a tiny little section on the body, and we call that an energy cyst. So it capsulizes it so that it protects it from the rest of the body, but it can still be symptomatic. So if you have a shoulder injury, if it's chronic, years of pain and years of treatment with no benefit, then there's possibly an emotional attachment in there as well that might need to be changed or released. So when this emotion, or when the energy cyst is there, these cells are actually vibrating at a different vibration than the other healthier cells that surround it. And they emanate this little bit of like a pulse. It's a different pulse than the regular cells. And as a practitioner, we use a technique called arcing, where we can actually pick up on those pulses. It's almost like throwing a pebble in the lake and seeing those ripples. So we pick up on the ripples, and we're able to find where the energy system in the body is. And then we use techniques like direction of energy, dialogue, visualization to help the person release that energy. And then that helps the body to fully heal.
Wow, that is fantastic and amazing on so many levels. And you do this practice, is that right, Dawn?
Yes,
Absolutely. That's
love it.
amazing. If you feel at home like this is something that I want to explore, certainly connect with Dawn on that. Yeah, it's quite something. It really is. Moving on to Karen now. Here's the question. I feel like when I look at my dog and cat, I know what they're thinking or what they need. I feel like I'm sort of a pet psychic. Could this be true even without having formal training?
Oh, most definitely. I think we kind of addressed this in the last episode, but that we're all animal communicators to some degree. You know, does everyone have pets here? Yeah. So think of yourself with your pet, and you know, have you ever been in a situation where you've say let your dog outside, and then you think, oh, I should check to see if the dog wants in, and it's at the door. Right? So is that just coincidence, or is that animal communication? And you know, often it's animal communication. And if this person thinks that they're picking up on you know, energy or communications, they probably are, and probably to a greater degree than most people. So I would suggest to this person to keep working on it and to develop that.
Yeah. I guess that might lead to sort of part B of the question. You know, taking formal training in animal communication, what does that allow you to do versus just being a natural animal communicator?
Well, what it does is it teaches you to distinguish between, you know, the communications and those things that you think maybe that's just a coincidence. It just kind of defines it a little bit more.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And have you found that you know, generally speaking, animals are like willing to communicate with you? And I ask that because I'm wondering, for our folks at home, for our viewers at home, you know, is there something that they could experiment with their own pet to see, you know, can I receive communication back from them?
Yeah. Oh, with your own pet.
Yeah, with your own pet.
It's
what
very
might be
easy.
an example or an exercise that someone could do at home?
Well, an exercise could be, let's see, to kind of just suggest what kind of treat would you like to a dog or to a cat.
Okay.
And see if you can get an answer back that's specific.
Okay. And how might that answer appear to someone? Is it just a knowing, or might they see sort of like an image, like having a thought? What might that look like?
Yeah, it could be either or, right? So everyone's a little different in terms of how they pick up those communications.
Well, that's good to know.
From their animals.
Okay.
But and your animals will react back. So, you know, it's a fun thing to try.
Well, I'm going to have fun with that for sure. You know, dogs, cats, and horses.
And horses, yes.
Thank you for that, Karen. Okay, question for me. The question submitted is this: how do you know if a past pet is communicating with you, and what would be the best way to try to communicate back to them? So I can speak about that in relation to humans. Then, Karen, maybe you can just add some input as it relates to pets. How do you know when a spirit loved one's trying to make contact with you? It can happen in a number of ways. One of the most common ways our loved ones visit us is through a very profound and deeply experiential dream. Dream visitations are very common. I'm often asked, how do I tell the difference between a dream visitation versus, you know, my mind, my psyche just wanting to experience them? And the hallmark, the sort of dividing line between an ordinary dream and a visitation, and I know this from spirit, is again when something profound is experienced, something profound is felt, seen, or known during that dream interaction. Other ways that they sort of let you know that they're present can be ordinary signs and symbols. So think about things like feathers appearing out of nowhere, thinking about dimes or pennies, coins in general showing up at sort of really interesting moments or in places they just shouldn't belong. I mean, one of the most fascinating stories I've ever heard is you know, a client on the West Coast had you know, vacuumed and mopped the hallway hardwood flooring And once was done that, put everything away, got into the shower, came out of the shower, and sitting there was a penny. And when she picked up the penny, it was the year of her son's birth. Like, how fascinating is that, right? Wow. And so they let us know that they're around in a lot of ways. Some are real common, some are just unique, just you. You know it, you have a feeling, you have a sense. And so it's quite individual. Now, what about pets, Karen?
There's a few things that I've experienced with my pets, and I'm sure others have too. A lot of times, if your pet likes to sleep on your bed, a lot of times people either feel that they're there even after they're passed, or they hear them, in the room, even though they've passed. And then another more subtle way that people get messages from their pets that have passed is those pets draw their attention to a photo of themselves.
Oh my gosh, is that ever fascinating?
Photos of our pets, right? Even if they've passed.
I love that, because I've heard of all of those from folks that I work with. I felt the bed go down in that exact spot that she used to be. Or I myself have experienced, not a pet of mine, but a pet of my sister's, after she transitioned to the spirit world. That feeling when your dog trots past you on the floor? I had that sense shortly after she passed, and I just had to let my sister know that she was okay. It was just her way of making contact to say, I made it, I'm okay, all is well. I love those as examples, because those are real life things. People really experience those. Yeah. I want to thank all three of you for being here today. As usual, we have a ton more questions that we could get through, but we will visit that at another time. Tune in for our next episode, and thanks for joining us.